Hi, so what I would like to do in the discussion section today is show a little bit of um, the second assignment steps, where the requirement was to, of course, either compose or take an existing composition. So we'll assume that we'll be using an existing composition and added this by changing the instruments that play in the existing recording. And we are all talking about MIDI recording. So let me try kind of to go and walk you through the steps. I hope we'll be sharing the screen in such a way that we can follow the steps. Um, so if we go and I just downloaded some of the files. Actually, this was a MIDI file. Let me kind of show the screen. So here we have a MIDI file, two MIDI files, and the screen is pretty small, but I hope you can see. Evangelion, the Beast, second, and Evangelion, Cruel Angels, thesis that I think one of the students selected as the compositions that match the hero and the boss themes for the second assignment. So if we use these two MIDI files, we can open them. We'll do the editing in LMMS, but at least I like to open this also in a notation editor. And I think I suggested some options for notation editors. What I like to use is Mus Score. So let me switch to Mus Score and share this one. So maybe just shoot the wheel. Yeah, you'll see Mus Score. So if I open a MIDI file in Mus Score, basically by selecting an open, you don't need any special imports from Mus Score. You can see this in a more traditional piano notation. But I guess that for many of us, this is not necessary. It just I'll use this as a visual help to get more of the musical examples going. Now I see that I'm not connected with my headphones, so let me try to connect this. Sorry about that. Okay. So hopefully that will improve the quality of the sound before we start playing. And okay, sorry about that. Okay, so I hope you can hear me. Oh, let me change the speakers. Um, okay, so what I was saying before, just quickly remind you that we had, the first step was to select some existing MIDI files from one of the resources available on the web, like the Shiro's game music repository that has a lot of PDFs and also MIDI files. And we are like looking into these two different possible compositions. So they're all written for piano, and we will now have to, well, can look into them and just analyze them briefly. You can see that this one has clearly like melody going on here and some chords or harmony going here. They kind of switch roles. You have the bass walking here, and then the upper voice maybe still has the melody, and some of the other like chord-like structures. This is not really a second voice happen here, and so on. And now we don't want to use the whole musical piece. We'll just select one aspect. The other example is much more difficult, maybe to kind of orchestrate or analyze. Maybe here we know that there is something like low double notes happening. Here we have definitely some kind of a passage going down. But from here on, dividing them into two instruments is going to be tricky. So we won't be doing really like a very detailed analysis and trying to orchestrate this. Let's just move and switch to LMMS and see how we import. And let's take the more complicated case, Evangelion, the Beast 2, just kind of to demonstrate some of the capabilities. So I'll be switching to LMMS, if I can find it quickly. Where it is, yes, okay. So you should be seeing the LMMS screen, and this is kind of the default LMMS that we are opening. And it has already these 4 tracks, and we won't be needing most of them, so we'll remove them. But the first step is actually to import a MIDI file. So if we go here on File, and we import, we have to go and find where these files are. So we have this, it was in my downloads. I browse my file interface, the navigator here, and I will open the Beast. And it actually added a piano track here, since it's a new piano track, and we don't need all the others. So we can basically go and remove all the other tracks. And now this is what we actually want to work with, this piano track. I can double click and open this in the piano roll. Also, these other like controller racks, the sound effects, we don't need them. We can close all of them. So this is now this piece in the piano roll notation. If you want to play around and kind of zoom in and zoom out, we can kind of a little bit. This is already zoomed out 25%. If you want to, the whole piece is much longer. I mean, like if seeing this in a larger zoom is maybe less effective. So yeah, so let's go back and zoom out and try to see, well, what portions we want to cut. The instructions for the homework were really just finding the first theme. Now, how we could do this visually or sonically? So of course, sonically, it makes some more intuitive sense. Let me try to play this. Now, the nice thing about the LMMS was that it opened this automatically in acoustic grand piano. So it read actually the header of the MIDI file and knew what instruments to take, and we'll have to switch this. So let me kind of first play this piece and then stop it somewhere. So there is some kind of opening here. Now the theme starts, right? It's actually, the tempo is very high. Now, I was talking while it was playing, but let's kind of just give some tips and even visual guides about, where we can look for the theme and cut it out. So definitely this seems to be something like an intro, because it doesn't, visually it doesn't correspond to what's going on here. This will be some kind of an outro. So here you might have some repetitions. Now, if you actually look at the patterns visually, you can see that there's some repetitions starting. And actually a good tip, or sort of a clue, even without like looking the more detail, is if this is 4x4, right, and that's what it is, you can try to count this and see if it divides nicely into 4 or 3, and you don't need too much of a musical knowledge to kind of just sense this. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then probably you would have either 4 or 8 bars until things start repeating. So each bar is 4, and then you look 4. The reason I'm mentioning that why we need to know that this is 4x4, because if this was some music which was done in 3 and it opens in 4, basically these bar lines, you can see they're like 4 subdivided into these large chunks. They would basically be wrong. So I wouldn't count on counting correctly the bars if inside every bar the meter is not correct. This is the signature. So if the signature is correct, I would usually expect to have phrases which nicely divide into basically something like, not 2 is too small, but like 4 and 8 would be kind of a good number to expect. So if you think that here, it's pretty evident that here something new starts, let's look like 1, 2, 3, 4. It looks like something else starting here. And then after these 4, we'll be kind of looking for a repetition. So exact repetition is probably where the theme starts again. So we can kind of look and see, well, this bar here, 1, okay, and then we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This looks very much like this, right? So it seems that this starts repeating itself. So we definitely don't want this part, okay? Now the question is, do we want to keep the intro or not? I'll just keep the intro for the sake of, more variety. But like if we wanted to have some kind of a later on adapted music, we'll probably separate this as an intro from the theme, and this might be a loop, okay? Which is pretty much what's happening here. Slightly, you can see the rhythm changes. So there are some variations between we go to the outro, but you can see already that this could be segmented and cut into pieces. So let me mark this area here, right? We decided that if this was starting the new theme, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. From here on, we kind of want to get rid. So I just took that selection and I deleted. Okay, that was this part. Done. Okay, so that's the first step. We have this music selected. And now we actually want to do the second step, which is divide this between 2 different musical instruments. So the way I would do this is actually, I will copy this whole thing twice so we can eventually see what's going on. Sorry, I don't need new notes. Let me come back to this. I'm selecting again this whole musical segment. Okay. Okay, and I'll copy this. And I want to create new musical tracks, right? So this opens and closes the track. I want now to add 2 other acoustic tracks, so I'll just drop players here. We can figure out what would be the instruments, and I can kind of go and paste the music twice. Okay, that'll be 1, right? I pasted this here. I close it. I can double click here, open another editor. I paste it again, close it. So basically what we have is these 3 copies. Here we have this extra space. We don't care about this. We can remove, well, we'll remove this track anyway. So why did I copy it twice? So I'll keep this just for reference for now. Now I'll go and try to figure out what could be reasonable instrumental choices. So let's say we want to keep separated the top from the bottom. We can go here and maybe say, let's play the melody in something like flute. So we open the sound fonts. We can see here that there are a lot of instruments that we can select from. Yeah, here's flute. We can select the flute. And we might also rename this so we remember that this is flute. That's totally doable. I mean, the name here and the selection don't need to correspond, just because we're not changing it. That we'll use this as a reminder. And for this one, okay, the second one, let's maybe pick up something like strings, right? So let's see, where do we have string instruments? Okay, I'm gonna be a little bit more careful. So let's log into the music box. Okay, bass, synth, viola, cello, strings. Here we have a bunch of strings. These are specific musical instruments if you want one. Here's like stereo strings, tremolo. Okay, tremolo is kind of the style you play. Let's just select this. Hopefully it'll be even more impressive, and we'll just rename this into strings. Okay. So the next step after we selected the instruments is actually to cut and paste these parts. So this is the flute now. So it's good I put the name because I can remember. And again, I'm not advising this as a real way to do instrumentation. You have to look into musical contents and be a little bit more careful about this. But just for the sake of the experiment, let's cut somewhere. I'll just take some kind of a note on E4 or whatever, and remove everything below this, and say let's keep this as string, as flute. Okay, we will see if it actually makes any musical sense. And we'll go here and actually remove the part that was playing the flute and keep this as the strings. So maybe I'll keep a little bit of an overlap so it doesn't really totally become disjoint. And now let's hear each one of them separately. So if I play this solo, let me play the piano, okay, and remind ourselves of what it sounds like. Sounds as one piano piece. Now, if you want to hear the flute, and that's it. And then, of course, we need to jump. Okay, and if you want to hear just the strings, so if we are happy with this, we can either mute this. We can just play these. Okay, we can just play these two and remove this track. So given this, now let's listen together to both. We can also play a little bit with the tempo. So if people didn't notice or haven't used this before, this is a really powerful tool. Let's just play it a little bit faster, maybe more dramatic. Let's see. I don't think it sounds good. That was the opening, and now let's hear the theme. Okay. There was some little strange moment when the violin kind of came in for a single note and moved away, which might require some work and improvement. We can kind of decide where we can double them or not. But I think it kind of now becomes much more interesting as a total musical kind of experience. Now we have basically the strings are more giving the atmosphere, and the flute is kind of this floating above, giving this melody that we can kind of distinguish and maybe memorize and whistle. So we're almost done. So the last thing would be we want to export this, and to make sure that we know, because we want to actually create an audio recording now. And if you want to record this, I showed this before, we need to decide what format we want to use. If you go with MP3, okay, let me put it on where we would want to put it on the downloads. Let's put it on downloads just next to the MIDI file, and we probably want to name this So it will be our homework 2. And I don't know if you wanted, this is the beast, so let's just, I think that's the one we were using, right? We save this. It asks you something about the the bitrate. Let's just keep it with the 160. We kind of explained this in the previous video. The 320 is a really good quality, 160 is reasonable. We won't notice much difference, and then we go start. You see it kind of renders this, it plays it faster than it's supposed to be. And now let's kind of switch again to the desktop, where we have the downloads, editors and downloads. So if I switch to downloads, you can see here we have a MP3 file. Okay, we can play it. I don't know if you're hearing it. I guess this is, I'm sharing audio, so I hope you hear it. But this is the actual recording. So this is it. I mean, you're pretty much done. And this is a simple example of how to take a MIDI file, import this, copy this, change your instruments, do some editing on the tracks, and save this. And this is pretty much what is required for homework 3. Of course, in addition to selecting the music and matching this and explaining how it matches to your main character, the protagonist and antagonist of the boss. So thank you for watching. Okay.